don't have any option than to accept the offer given to us, because we were not fighting for money. We were fighting for justice. The justice that we were looking for is for the government to do investigation, proper investigation, bring out the perpetrators to book, let them explain to Ghanaians. They are our trained military, as they said. We pay them with our taxpayers' money. Why should they use live bullet on unarmed crowd who were protesting for their rights? That's all what we wanted. But they feel maybe the laws of Ghana is not respected. Let me put it that way. So they decide to do. But what we are applying next now is we are going to sit down with the legal team, who is the fix the country lawyers, sit down with them, and we have a meeting with the Attorney General on the 9th of February. From the meeting, we'll get to know. And we were not the only people who were supposed to be compensated. They gave only two families, the family of the late Abdul Nasir Yusuf and the late Mutaka Mohammed. So the remaining one too, we are pleading to the government to do the effort and then bring out their share also. So that is what we are planning now. We are going to sit down with our legal team and we seek advice from them, depending on what will come out of our meeting with the Attorney General. We are not all that satisfied, but we don't have any option than to accept the offer given to us, because we were not fighting for money. We were fighting for justice. The justice that we were looking for is for the government to do investigation, proper investigation, bring out the perpetrators to book, let them explain to Ghanaians. They are our trained military, as they said. We pay them with our taxpayers' money. Why should they use live bullet on unarmed crowd who were protesting for their rights? That's all what we wanted. But they feel maybe the laws of Ghana is not respected. Let me put it that way. So they decide to do. But what we are applying next now is we are going to sit down with the legal team, who is the fix the country lawyers, sit down with them, and we have a meeting with the Attorney General on the 9th of February. From the meeting, we'll get to know. And we were not the only people who were supposed to be compensated. They gave only two families, the family of the late Abdul Nasir Yusuf and the late Mutaka Mohammed. So the remaining one too, we are pleading to the government to do the effort and then bring out their share also. So that is what we are planning now. We are going to sit down with our legal team and we seek advice from them, depending on what will come out of our meeting with the Attorney General.
The spokesperson for the families of the victims who lost their lives during the Ejura shootings. Like I mentioned earlier, so over the weekend, government compensated two of the families with 250,000 Ghana cedis each. And they mentioned that for those who are injured, based on the recommendations by the committee that was set up to inquire into the Ejura shootings, they will compensate them later. There's supposed to be some further work to be done concerning the level of injury that each person suffered. And after that, they will decide how much each person deserves. And well, you've heard from the family member, and he says that they were hoping that a lot more will be done about the people who were also involved in this atrocity. What is being done to those who committed the crime, which is the question that a lot of people are asking. I remember that some time back, you know, Honorable George, well, he did mention that he was hoping the Ashanti Regional Minister would be asked to step aside. Sam George was the one who mentioned that, because he said that he acted irresponsibly. What's happening to that? We have not even seen the reports that was given to the Interior Minister and subsequently to the President as well. We still do not have all the details in that, except for the fact that they recommended that the DSP, District Police Commander for the Ejura enclave, should also be reassigned. Joining us also this morning is Honorable Issa Hussein. He's a former MP for Kankwe North constituency. Good morning.
Hi, good
How are you
morning.
doing? I almost called you Alaji till you reminded me. How's your weekend, by the way?
My weekend was good.
Yeah?
It was quite restful.
Okay.
A few social events, but just
some funerals in between as well.
It's just normal. Normal.
It comes with
normal
politics.
for us. Yeah, it comes with politics. I mean, if you live in the community and you want to be an active participant in activities, I mean, you get involved in some of these things. So it's just a normal weekend for some of us.
Over the weekend, you compensated the victims of the Ejura shootings. The family, the spokesperson for the family member says that that's not enough, by the way. You're supposed to compensate the injured as well. And in fact, legal action should be taken against those who fired the guns, those who caused the injury and the deaths. They haven't heard anything about that.
Oh, you want me to address this one? Right.
Yeah, I'm
right
starting
on.
with you now. Okay. He speaks for the MPP, by the way.
Right. I think that it's heartwarming to know that the whole issue and the incidents that happened around Ejura has not been forgotten. So some people are still keeping the matter in the media space, and the appropriate authorities are also taking steps to ensure that these things will not reoccur, and what needs to be done is also being done. It's heartwarming to know that. It's also good that at least the spokesperson is also reacting and also calling maybe the attention of the authorities or those who are supposed to act. Maybe there is some oversight or something. So we look forward to this report being brought to the and acted upon as a committee recommended. It's just heartwarming to know that unless something is being done, and the families calling for the committee to do more. In instances like this, like I read last week on the Apiate disaster, where the MC of the area is claiming that the number of people who have registered to have been part of the community is actually bigger than the community itself. And so people also tend to use or take advantage of such unfortunate situations to put themselves in a state to get some largesse. I hope that we are able to go beyond that and the appropriate actions taken and we are able to forestall such recurrences in the future. That's as much as I want to.
So the Economic Fighters League have responded to this compensation. They are saying that the compensation to victims is an act to indemnify the state of its culpability. In fact, they released a statement on the 9th, of December. That was way back because, we had heard about that compensation. And they're saying that, well, if you're compensating them, what happens to the people who are supposed to be punished for the crime that they committed? And does that then beg the question that you were actually guilty of whatever crime was committed that day?
Whether or not somebody was guilty, somebody lost their life or somebody got injured. And I'm not sure that somebody saying that we are compensating you for loss of life. I don't think we can put a value on it. The object or whatever compensation they get is to assuage whatever. I mean, some of the people who died were probably the people who earned livelihood for families and all of that. And so if they are dependents or something is being done to assuage whatever suffering they are dependents, it's not them being compensated for loss of life. On the flip side, we are not going to say that because they have been compensated, what needs to be done. The committee, I recall, probably did give a recommendation specifically on the police commander in charge of the area, and I am sure that some action would have been taken by now. The report itself, I am not too sure where we are on some of the other recommendations, but I hope that whatever necessary steps we need to take as a country, as a government, to ensure that these things don't happen again. Not just in Ejura, but in other areas. We have known and heard that Ejura itself has been a hot spot, especially when it comes to political activities and elections and whatever it takes. I hope that the involvement of people like the chief imam in the process and all of that will actually change the face of Ejura itself, and other hot spots in the country will also take some lessons from what transpired and move away. I mean, we're following what is happening in the sub-region. It's not time at all for us to be.
I'll let you hold on with your thoughts, and Lawyer, I'll come to you shortly. But for those of you who missed out on what the spokesperson for the family said, we'll play that tape one more time quickly, and we'll come back and continue the conversation on the compensation of the Ejura victims.
We are not all that satisfied, but we don't have any option than to accept the offer given to us, because we were not fighting for money. We were fighting for justice. The justice that we were looking for is for the government to do investigation, proper investigation, bring out the perpetrators to book, let them explain to Ghanaians. They are our trained military, as they said. We pay them with our taxpayers' money. Why should they use live bullet on unarmed crowd who were protesting for their rights? That's all what we wanted. But they feel maybe the laws of Ghana is not respected. Let me put it that way. So they decide to do. But what we are applying next now is we are going to sit down with the legal team, who is the fix the country lawyers, sit down with them, and we have a meeting with the Attorney General on the 9th of February. From the meeting, we'll get to know. And we were not the only people who were supposed to be compensated. They gave only two families, the family of the late Abdul Nasir Yusuf and the late Mutaka Mohammed. So the remaining one too, we are pleading to the government to do the effort and then bring out their share also. So that is what we are planning now. We are going to sit down with our legal team and we seek advice from them, depending on what will come out of our meeting with the Attorney General.
Lawyer, what do you make of the compensation and the fact that the Economic Fighters League are saying that this compensation to victims is an act to indemnify the state of its culpability?
Okay, so once again, good morning, and good morning to the Honorable Isa Fuseni. Ordinarily, if the state intervenes, okay, to compensate victims of state-sponsored, violent conduct, that should not be a problem, because once people are affected by the conduct of state actors, they ought to be compensated. But there's a bigger problem that I think that we should all look at. And that bigger problem relates to the fact that it is becoming one too many. Anytime state actors have the benefit of using gun, they end up injuring, citizens. And that is creating a regrettable culture of impunity. And so we have come to the point where I believe that regardless of the compensation that is paid, some people must be held personally liable for it. It is the only way to serve as deterrent to others. Because if the state intervenes and pay, it gives other people the thinking that tomorrow I can do the same thing and the state will come and pay. I make this point because if you recall, just about 3 years ago, when the by-election in Ayaso West Wagon happened, you remember how, again, state-sponsored the discharge of firearm into unarmed, innocent Ghanaians. As we speak, who had been held responsible for that dastardly conduct? Nobody. And so when you have a situation of that nature, it creates a certain culture of impunity. And I recall when even the Emil Short Committee, or Commission, recommended that some people should even be prosecuted for their role, government of Ghana issued a white paper and basically provided an indemnity to those individuals. Then Ejura happened. And so if you have a situation where the conduct of government itself creates an impression to security officials that they can do this and the state will just come and pay compensation, it does not abode well for a country like this. So I strongly believe that regardless of how much has been paid to the victims, some individuals ought to be punished.
Who are these individuals?
Let me, again, if you look at the Ashanti regional minister, he gave the command for the intervention by the military.
He says he acted within the law.
Which law?
That's what he
He's
says.
the
He's
chair
head of the,
Regional Security Council.
Yes, and he says that was
Was
his job.
it the appropriate circumstance for him to trigger the intervention of the military? Definitely not. What about the soldiers who, faced with that circumstance, decide to discharge firearms? What about them? Nothing. In fact, one of the regrettable things that I read, and with the greatest respect to the members of the committee, was the fact that the police commander in Ejura should be transferred. And they say he was incompetent. Since when has transfer become an antidote for incompetence? If someone is incompetent, you recommend further training for the person to enhance his capacity.
They said his image is at stake because now he's in the bad books of the people within the Ejura community, which is why they need to transfer him to another community.
When you read the report cites his incompetent handling of the situation as the basis for the transfer. And I'm saying that if someone is incompetent, the solution is not transfer. It's like trying to resolve the problem of a drunkard by relocating the drinking spots. I mean, you've not done anything to the problem.
Perhaps it's going to make it more difficult for him to get there. So it's going to affect his behaviors going forward.
You understand? It does not solve the problem. If he's incompetent, you recommend further training for him so he can, in future, handle the situation better. You don't go through that route. So the challenge I have is that our security officials, we must begin to have a situation where there should be a certain punishment regime. The person should be surcharged, okay, personally for how much they stay. It will serve as deterrent. Because you see, look, again, like I cited the example of Ayaso West Walk-on. It was totally uncalled for. And in fact, the people who masterminded that conduct from the National Security Council Secretariat, Azugu and Co., onto the Caleb issue, you were still at the National Security Council Secretariat. It gives people, it emboldens them that they can continue in this reckless conduct, only for the state, your taxpayer, your money to be used to compensate those individuals. I don't think we need that. I don't think so.
Okay.
And like you see, for me, there's no value to be placed on human life. That you say, okay, by payment of this monetary compensation, we have more or less provided a restitution. No. Human life is human life. What those individuals can do, we do not know. But in all of these compensation claims, there's an outstanding issue. The family of Kaka. What is the state's intervention for them? Remember that is the incident that triggered the whole, Ejura, disturbance. What about them? He has a family, he has a wife, he has kids, the mother is alive. What about them? And again, the brother, who is now in custody, overclaimed that he, blah, 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 was part of it. What is happening to those issues? We need to bring closure to this matter.
Issa, I mean, very valid question, because the Economic Fighters League are asking, and I'll just quote a bit of what they wrote in their statement. They're saying that the exclusion of the Kaka family from yesterday's disbursement serves as further evidence of the problem of extrajudicial compensation. Evidence on record show that Nasiru Yusuf and Murtala Mohammed were murdered by the Ghanaian military on the orders of the state while the youth were returning from Kaka's funeral in June 2021, and another was badly injured as well. It says the Kaka family has equally suffered. In fact, they have arguably suffered more. In an effort to absolve themselves of blame, the state in 2021 chose to further perpetuate oppression and violence on them by arresting and charging Kaka's brother, Idi Mohammed, with his murder. As we speak, Idi remains under remand, falsely accused of a murder which evidence has shown to have been politically motivated.
Bella, with the Economic Fighters League, is that the name?
Yes.
of the group? I'm wondering how they came to such a conclusion. When the police are actually on the beat investigating the matter, they have a suspect. I listened to bits of the commission sitting, and when Kake's wife was at the commission, and when other family members were, when other eyewitnesses, I informed an opinion of myself, but I don't really think that the Economic Fighters League have the wherewithal, the competence to be arriving that the suspect being held by the police is being held under false pretense or something. I think that they should move away from this and allow state actors to do what is expected of them. We could say whatever you want. You could accuse the Ashanti Regional Minister, but you see, he is the head of the Regional Security Council. He probably sits in a position where the information he has on areas and potential disturbances in the Ashanti region is, I mean, myself and others are not privy to some of the information that he has. So when he knows a particular area, knows of the potential that some of these things will cause, and that it is also not for nothing that sometimes you have a joint police military patrol teams or teams to react to such a. So I don't think that it is out of place for him to trigger that action when it is necessary, due as a result of some assessment that the Regional Security Council is held in the past. They know the area, they know the terrain.
If you remember when he was
responding,
responding, he said he was in a meeting when he got that call that there was some, violence erupting in Ejura, and then he immediately called the military. But then there have been questions that have been asked that even within the police service, there are levels to, the ranks that you can invite to address a situation. And why could he not have escalated to another rank if the rank on the ground could not do the job, instead of going straight to the military? Because we know military is trained to shoot and kill, not to control violence.
Certainly.
Or disturbances in an area.
It is not for nothing that at a certain level will require the military to support the police in some of these activities. And I will still insist that as a regional minister, he probably understands the terrain. He knows the areas. He knows of the potential or that this will be as a threat of the peace of the area and the danger of it spreading into other areas. So it was important that he actually took a decision that would nip it in the bud and not allow it to get into other areas.
2 lives were lost. Is that nipping it in the bud?
Certainly.
Several
injuries.
injured.
Two lives were lost. And I mean, it shouldn't happen. But you see, in any instance like this, it could have been worse. Given what transpired in the Ejura that particular, it could have been worse. It could have been much worse. But maybe what he did was to stop it at a certain level. Maybe what he did. Maybe if he had not involved the military, it would have gotten into other levels, given the area and the potential that it posed to the security of the region as a whole. So we should, on the hindsight, we can sit here and say maybe he could have triggered a lower level of intervention, or on the hindsight, yes. But in the heat of the moment, he needed to take an action. And I think that as state actors, as people in authority, as people in office to forestall some of these things, I think that sometimes we will take decisions, and the actual happenings of the time, I mean, these decisions are real time. Sometimes you don't even have the luxury of waiting for everything to fall in place. Get all the necessary information before you take some of these decisions. I think that he was apt. He took a decision. He stands by it, and that
So he shouldn't step aside. What about?
I am not saying I am not saying. I
should
mean,
he step aside?
I haven't seen the report. I don't know what the commission said.
That report was supposed to have been made available.
It's not something that I will be able to say.
It was supposed to have been made available to Ghanaians. What's the update
like
on that?
Isa, sorry?
It was supposed to have been made available. I remember that when the president received the report from the interior minister, that was on the 8th of September, the director of communication at the Jubilee House had said that they would make it available to the public so we can all be privy to whatever was recommended.
You see,
we still do not have those details yet, except for the 1 or 2 lines that we got.
In instances of security, I'm sure people are in charge, and sometimes maybe even the content of the report. I mean, you can't just release it to the. I mean, there is you have to know as much as you really need to take care of yourself. So maybe some of these things are in place and it's ongoing. I mean, I'm sure that with the payment of the compensation, it's an indication that some action is being taken on the report. And in the goodness of time, I'm sure that whatever needs to be released to the public will.
It's taking 5 months, Isa.
You see, we could sit here and use words like state sponsored. We could and the government white paper cleared or answer. Yes, the commission. And I also was working. And you see, I also was working. I was a party agent on that fateful day in Abelinkwe, one of the potentially hot spots within the constituency. I was an agent there, and what transpired in my polling station, right from when it opened to when it closed, I mean, it was very cordial. I availed myself. Even members of national officers of the NDC, when they came around, I'll go there, I'll speak to them, introduce myself, and it was really cordial. After the commission sat, they came out with their report. Government also had the right, every right to respond to the issues that the commission brought up within its work, and that's exactly what government did. Government didn't do anything untoward.
It did not. Government has been heavily criticized for that white paper that they issued.
Government can be, but I think it was in the right of government to also issue a white paper on the commission's report. Yes, that is the right of government. So it is
right that the likes of Double up until now have not been prosecuted for whatever
you could in the view of the commission, but government also has a right to also react to some of the recommendations.
The young man who physically assaulted Honorable Sam George, government gave a reason as to why they do not think that young man should be brought to book, and they said that in fact it was the fault of the honorable for being slapped because he also
that is why when I started, I said me, Fuseini Isa, I was a polling agent in Abelinkwe from when the polls opened to when it closed. I followed the ballot papers from there to University of Ghana for coalition, right? In my polling station, nobody slapped me. I was a member of parliament then. Because of how
Sam George.
I was a member of parliament then, because of how I held by and decided that it was going to. I decided that this was a way I was going to go.
What do you mean exactly by that?
What do I mean? Because I ensure that I'm saying what I want to say.
That's what I'm asking. I'm trying to understand
saying what I want to say. I don't think that, Bella, you should be putting words in my mouth.
I'm just asking.
On that day,
I'm trying to understand.
That's why I'm trying to explain my actions within the polling station.
Okay.
I knew it was going to be heated. I mean, every by-election is heated. So what I did, I think by Asedun Ketia, every national executive member of the NDC came to that particular polling station because it was supposed to be one of the hotspots. But when they got there, this is before noon, before the NDC actually boycotted. But when they got there, I will approach them and introduce myself as a member of parliament for Kakwinov, who is a polling station. Everything was with the NDC agents. We had a cordial relationship, and everything went on. What transpired in other places was as a result of what other people and how other people decided to behave on the day.
In this case, Honorable Sam George?
Bella, I am saying what I want to say.
I'm asking. I'm trying to get you
to clarify.
Yes,
if he decided to go that route, if he decided on the day to go that route, and as a result of it, there was some commotion there, that's to him. I was a member of parliament then. And
if
also
a member of your political party, you're saying that he may have decided to go that way. If a member of your political party had also decided to go that way,
no,
you see,
that is why, Bella, that is why I am speaking for myself. I said I was a polling agent today. And I told you how I behave to forestall any such occurrence at my polling station.
So if another member of your party had also behaved, let's say the way that Honorable Sam George did, would have said it was right for him to be physically assaulted?
Thankfully on the day, no member of the New Patriotic Party acted the way Sam George did.
If the person did?
If it's conditional, it's not something and it's speculative. It's not something that I want to. It's not a territory that I want to get into.
Now moving forward, if a member of parliament gets involved in any brawl of some kind, you would say that.
Why should a member of parliament get involved in a brawl? Why should? Being in parliament is such a privilege and honor, and you should live to that expectation. You shouldn't get in a brawl.
Okay, was he not calling the men to order?
Parliament should get into a brawl.
Was he not calling the men to order?
No circumstance should get a member of parliament in a brawl in public. No circumstance should.
I see.
No circumstance should.
Lawyer, what do you say to this in particular before we even move on to the other compensations that are yet to be given?
I find the posturing of my brother this morning a bit troubling. You see, once you justify, assault of a colleague, at that time a colleague MP, you are providing justification for future conduct. And that is why I considered the government white paper and the reason they assigned for the assault of the Honorable MP Sam George extremely regrettable. Look, this is a government that put together a committee made up of Professor Henrietta Mensah Bonsu, Emil Schultz, the then IGP, former IGP Patrick Quartin, among other things, to do that work. Obviously, the fact-finding by the committee was not pleasing to government. Look, if you read the white paper, government even created the impression that the commissioners were incompetent and that they didn't know the remits of the attempts of...
They did not use the word incompetent. They just said that they did not make a faithful, impartial
Listen to her.
How could you say that?
Listen to her.
That does not mean that...
Hold on.
They are saying they're incompetent.
When you give a committee a task that make a faithful, impartial findings of fact, and I come out and say, the work I have given you, you have not performed it. Who are you?
Based on the recommendations I gave you.
You were incompetent.
They were supposed
That is basically what government was saying.
There were terms of reference.
Isa, please hold on.
That was what government was saying, indirectly. That they didn't perform the task that they were given.
But they agreed to some of the recommendations that the committee made.
That is what makes it even more troubling. A committee that you claim could not make a faithful, impartial finding, the same person now accept portions and then discard, approbate and reprobate the same document coming from the same commission. But even what is even more troubling is that a renowned professor of criminal law, the one who taught the professors who taught us, recommends that the conduct of Double, the conduct of Suleiman, the guy who assaulted Sam George, he ought to be, prosecuted for assault. Then the Attorney General now says that no, he was provoked. Anybody who has sat in any criminal law class will tell you that provocation is not a defense.
It's not
for
a defense.
assault. For assault.
Okay.
Provocation is only a defense when it comes to the issue of murder. And even for you to invoke the defense of provocation, there are very strict conditions. And even for provocation, it does not even provide absolute defense. It only reduces your sentence. That is what provocation does. And anybody who has sat in any criminal law class will tell you this. So for government of Ghana now to say that Sam George provoked the said officer, and for that matter, he could be assaulted, was the most regrettable thing to have come.
I didn't think that was what the white.
That's
no,
what
but that is what they said.
It says that it was because of his actions.
I did not say that he could be.
Calm down, you see. But you see,
it says that they cannot take action against Suleiman,
and they use provocation.
He was provoked.
That does not.
You say you are even worried. You say you are even worried that this is.
But I have made my point. I have made my point.
But you see,
I was an active participant.
Let me just proceed on this. And the other issue is double. The use of firearm, the possession of firearm. What happened to that too? Double is all over the place. So I'm saying that the conduct of this government gives some people the idea that they can continue in such reckless act of impunity, and we should stop it. Can you imagine if the likes of Double, Azugu, and all of those things, the recommendations by the Ayawaso West Wagon Commission had been carried out through and through, we would not have seen Double and his men and what they did to Caleb, a journalist, granted that he had even done anything unlawful. So when you don't punish people, it is not good enough, because then it encourages others that they can do same and go, scot-free. At the end of the day, whose money are they using for the compensation? Our taxpayers' money.
Okay, let me just read a bit of that white paper on the assault on the honorable member, Sam George. It says here that the government accepts and pass the finding of the commission under paragraph 6. However, the government rejects the finding that members of the SWAT team committed criminal assaults against certain members of the crowd gathered in front of the residence of the parliamentary candidate. Now, it says as well that the government accepts in part the recommendation in paragraph 5. The report shall I think I've missed it. Let me just try and find it. Well, let's move on. I think I'll read it. I think I missed that part, but I'll read that part out for you so that we see the exact words. Right? Well, no, we're moving on. We cannot stay on Ejura.
So
what is the situation now with regards to compensation of those who were injured during the Ayawaso West War Gone?
I am not in a position to,
because just about 2 weeks ago we marked for 3 years of the Ayawaso West War Gone violence, and they complained, the victims complained that they still have not been compensated up until now.
I am not too sure where we are on that. Maybe I could but I will still insist. I will still insist that the government had every right.
You see,
hold on, lawyer, please.
To issue a white paper on whatever the recommendations the commission came up with. And as an active participant in that election, in Abilimpi, I acted very much to forestall such occurrence in the polling station at Abilimpi, where I was. And so nothing actually happened. Other things are happening in other places. I mean, other people should be responsible for them.
There were 8 people who also lost their lives as a result of the 2020 general elections. And we'll take a quick story. Just a few months ago, Komla Adom did a piece on 1 year after the 2020 general election violence, where 8 people lost their lives and many were left injured. And for a number of them, they are still asking, where is the compensation?
It feels like it was yesterday. Mother of 15-year-old Rita Otu, who was killed during the December 2020 election in the Ododo-Diodio constituency, tells me. As she speaks to me, grandmother of a little girl is in tears. Events of that fateful day are playing back on her mind. For Dinah Otu, the death of her daughter has changed her life forever.
When I see her colleagues going to school, I remember her and I always break down.
And as she tells me, there have been no police contacts or investigations into circumstances that led to her daughter's death since the incident.
mo benye ba wi ni na ke na kam ko ba ko bia ba bi ko sanya ke mini ya no alo mini gbeje no to alo te ayare te.
We have been all by ourselves. Nobody has been here to ask about her death since last year. She helped me do my trading business, and without her, I am lonely.
The Otu family is just one of 6 who lost their relative during the chaotic election. But while they continue to grieve, they hope someday the death of their daughter will be avenged. For governance experts and political watchers, the silence and inaction on the part of the police 1 year on is unacceptable.
And the 15-year-old girl is not the only one who lost her life. In Techiman, there were some too who lost their lives as well.
Bella,
and other places.
On this platform, I've made the point that when people engage in such conduct and you do not punish them, it gives others the opportunity to repeat such conduct for the first time in the political electoral history of this country. 8 innocent Ghanaians were shot dead at Techiman, unprovoked. They were basically gunned down. Yes, 8 in Techiman South.
8.
Today, our president is even yet to even visit the families of those killed. He has not, to date, a year after. The militarization of our collation centers, it had never happened before. The men who engage in those dastardly conduct are working. You recall the election of the speaker, how for the first time armed military men invaded parliament from 1992 to date. When was the last time you saw such an incident? Nobody had been held accountable for that conduct. He was a former MP. 3 arms of government are recognized in our democratic space. Imagine the president conducting his business in Jubilee House only for military men to enter his office. That will amount to an attempted coup. That is what happened on the floor of parliament. To date, the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, was he the one who gave the command for the soldiers to invade the floor of parliament? That invasion, nothing had happened to it. No officer had been held responsible. Can I say on this platform that the command for the military to do that came from the commander-in-chief?
We cannot say that for a fact.
Exactly. But you can only come to that conclusion if you hold people responsible. Was it the president that asked them to go to the floor of parliament? Was it the president? What happened in Techiman South? Who gave that command? Soldiers don't act like that. There's always command. And there must be command responsibility. As we speak, nobody. So it is breeding a culture of impunity. But you see, I'm not surprised. Why? You were here. Is it ACP Nanka, Bruce and Co? Assaulted right in front of the president's office.
Oh.
The Jubilee House, is that not his office? No, no, but is
that not his office though?
Yeah, that's his office.
No, the way he will say right in front, as if at the door. I mean, look.
Is the Jubilee House
that's
not the office of the president?
That's his office. But you see, that is the point. You see, the point I'm making is that look, let's take this security matter serious. It can be someone. It can be any one of us. For me, matters relating security, I do not want to do NDC MPP because you can be caught up.
Okay. Isa, so there are 6 residents of Techiman South who had sued the state and they were demanding a total of 15 million Ghana cedis as compensation for injuries that they sustained during the 2020 elections. I remember that Honorable Samu Kudjetwa Blackwell and another MP, the MP for Lembele, also called on Shraj to investigate the Attorney General, the Defense Minister, and other heads for the violence that ensued during the 2020 elections. Why have these people not been compensated, first of all, for them to now even start asking for money?
I think that when it comes to those matters, it is there are no hard and fast ways to come to a conclusion on some of these investigations, because we know some investigations take forever. Well, in this country, when a sitting member of parliament was actually murdered in his house, his room. Last week, I was hearing that the doctor who conducted the postmortem on JB, the late Honorable JB Boachidankwa, is saying that his report got missing because it was on a laptop on a trip to Germany. Somebody broke into his house. I mean, what is this? And I think that elsewhere, I also read that there was a copy in the database of the police hospital or something. And so you see, especially when we have legal issues, and I also just heard this morning that Attorney General is doing something to make sure that criminal proceedings are actually fast-tracked. And I think that is in the right direction, because sometimes people are able to use the same process to frustrate some of these processes. And so when investigations are ongoing and they have not been able to come to the bottom of it, it's very difficult for you to start doing things like compensation and else. I mean, if you watch what happens in other jurisdictions, I mean the FBI, for instance, there is a whole show on rival murders and some of the murders, it takes probably 20 years or so for them to come to an understanding how or even hold people responsible. So once investigations are ongoing, I think that we as a people,
investigations are ongoing at the moment.
I think so. I mean, we cannot.
When did it start?
We cannot assume that nobody is working on such cases. When did it start? Reports were made to the police. The police have been on a beat, and I'm sure the EC itself is learning from some of these things. I don't expect us to sit here.
Did the EC not say that they cannot be blamed for the deaths?
Of course, the security apparatus that were deployed for the day. I mean, there certainly was a policeman. And the policeman is going to write a report. The policeman is going to write a report.
Even for the EC, the payment of the security men was done by the Electoral Commission. You pay people for their services and say you are not responsible for their conduct. Look, everything
whatever transpired at the polling station, there are reports that will be given to the appropriate quarters.
We launched an investigation into Ejura killings almost immediately after.
That was an isolated case that needed to be addressed at the point. Else,
but the death of 8 people.
I have not said so. What I'm saying is that I am sure. In fact, what you just read, others have even called on Yoko and other people to start. I am sure that in the coming days or weeks, we should be able to get to know where investigations are and get some updates on what is happening.
So at the moment, you don't know when even the IRSOS war-gone victims will be compensated. That's what you're saying.
I won't sit here and tell you that.
All right. Quick one. So 6.3 on the white paper issued. I just needed to read this out to you. So it says that the government does not accept the Commission's recommendation that Mohammed Suleimana must be prosecuted for the offence of assault, to wit, the slapping of Honourable Member of Parliament, Mr. Samuel Nate George, on the basis that the Commission at paragraphs 6.1, 6.2 on page 55 of the report accepted the facts which led to the said assault on an honourable member of parliament, which facts support a valid defence of provocation for the said assault. Just needed to read that. But let's move on now. Let's talk about Moody's. They have downgraded Ghana's rating to CAA1, but the outlook looks stable. And this came over the weekend as well. So let me just read a bit of it for those of you who haven't heard. Ratings agency Moody's has downgraded Ghana's long-term issue and senior unsecured debt ratings to CAA1 from B3 and changed the economic outlook to stable from negative. The downgrade to CAA1 reflects the increasingly difficult task that the government faces addressing its intertwined liquidity and debt challenges. And it says weak revenue generation constraints government's budget flexibility and tight funding conditions on international markets, and they force the government to rely on costly debt with shorter maturity. This comes after Fitch also downgraded Ghana's credit ratings to B negative with a negative outlook. This is not too good for government and for the finance ministry, but the finance ministry has actually responded, and they are challenging Moody's ratings as well. They're saying that there are some contradictions here. And so what do you say to this? Because that's what the finance ministry is saying.
I'm sure Moody's, whether Moody's, whether S&P, whether Fitch, they all come to this whatever rating conclusion based on information available to them. And the finance ministry is actually in charge of running our economy. You may sit and have third-party information which might not be complete, and so the finance ministry has every right to say that there are inconsistencies, and if there are any inconsistencies in the details that they come with, I think it's in their right. But you see, in the bigger scheme of things, we are still not in normal times, and it's not peculiar to Ghana. Economies the world over. U.S. economy, the biggest. I'm not too sure if China is overtaking them yet. Some of the biggest economies in the world are also going through some of these challenges, debt levels as a result of expenses or extraordinary things that had to be done in 2020 as a result of this pandemic. The Chinese economy is having its challenges. The British economy is having its challenges. In the UK today, they are having a 30-year high inflation. I mean, inflation at about 5.2% is the highest in about 30 years for the UK economy. They are telling us that they are going to pay more for energy. They are experiencing food inflation, and so government had to take extraordinary measures to ensure that people are cushioned. This happening in the UK. Their debt levels is ballooned to unknown territories. It's not just unique. It's not unique to Ghana, and all of this is as a result of the pandemic. Most of these rating agencies today, they are unique challenges with Ghana and our prospects. It's our ability to be able to mobilize revenue locally, and that has been an age-old problem with this economy. We run an economy where we know whether it was under NDIS, whether it was under NPP. The rigidities in our budget. By rigidities, I mean that for all the revenue that come into our coffers, after 3 line items, we are virtually done with everything. And that has been the structure of the economy that we've been running. And so when you run an economy like that, and then you're hit with a pandemic, it just makes your situation very, very difficult. Because don't forget, in 2020 alone, whilst we ran an economy where our revenue shortfalls was by 13 billion revenue that we envisaged, that did not come. Our expenses as a result of the pandemic went up by 12 billion. So within the two, there was a shift of 25 billion that government had to take care of. Today we are faced with some very difficult security situations in the sub-region. Our expenses on our defense, it's gone so high. We were facing extraordinary items like facing out this banking cleaning, which cost us about 21 billion as well. All this had to be paid for, and so after coming out of this, we have to find a way to plug the hole wherever we got the money to pay this. Yes, we took loans to do some of these things, and it's time has come for us to pay back the loans. Look, if we didn't spend that 21 billion, we were faced with a situation where our whole banking system was going to collapse, and no economy can restore that. I mean, it was such a difficult situation. We had to do what we had to do at the time. We had to do what we had to do, and this is where it's brought us. What we are saying is that, look, within the sub-region, whilst our peers, the likes of Cote d'Ivoire, the likes of Senegal, are doing tax revenues to GDP in the ranges of 18 to 20%, Ghana is still doing 12%. It means that ab initio, right from the word go, 6 to 8% of our GDP should come in form of revenue. It is not there. So that is what we have to go after. I am sure that the ones those rating agencies are satisfied that we are able to generate our revenues locally, or we are able to mobilize enough revenue locally. All those ratings
once they are convinced.
Yes,
but that's what government is saying, that
them.
You are being contradictory, because Moody's justifies the stable outlook despite the downgrade to CAA1 by acknowledging government's strong track record in delivering effective.
But I made a point that those rating agencies, whether Moody's, who is downgrading us, or S&P, who is saying a positive, or Fitch, which I'm not sure where they stand, they make this decision based on information available. That is why the ministry has to engage them, because of inconsistencies that the ministry is discovered in their process of coming to that. So it's normal thing. They have to be engaged every now and again. They are privy to third-party information that is published by the ministry. So if the ministry thinks that, look, this rating it's out of what the actual situation is, it is in the right of the ministry to engage in it, and that is what. But for them to be inconsistent, whilst S&P is looking at upgrading us to a positive place, Moody is also looking. It means that there is some inconsistency, and that is what the ministry.
There's some inconsistency.
Of course.
Will we say that there's inconsistency with Fitch as well?
With Fitch, I'm not. That's why I said I'm not too sure where Fitch stands as we speak today.
They downgraded us with a negative outlook, and that means that if we even go out there to secure some loans, there's the doubts that we can pay back. That is what it means.
And I'm saying that the doubts and the ratings of economy, it's not unique to Ghana.
Okay.
The US is one of the biggest economies. It's in unknown territories when it comes to national debt.
Okay.
And everybody is trying to manage their situation. And so if Ghana is also trying to manage, it's not out of place. What we need to do now is to engage them to ensure that the ratings that they give is a reflection of the actual situation with our economy.
Lawyer, what do you say to the Moody's ratings now? Because government is saying that their recent fiscal consolidation measures, as announced by the minister, is anchored on debt sustainability and a positive primary balance. Largely, these address the concerns that Moody's has raised, and so they find their rating contradictory.
You see, what these international rating agencies have done is basically to confirm the position that we have canvassed earlier, that the axis of incompetence here, Nanado Dankwe Akufo-Addo, Bawumia, and Ken Ofori-Atta, basically what they have done, okay, is to run this economy and collapse it.
How so? COVID came.
You see, anytime the issue of the mismanagement of this economy comes up, our friends in the NPP, in their desire to, as it were, globalize their incompetence, will tell you that, look, you know what, it is as a result of the COVID pandemic, that is where we are where we are. Look, if you look at even the African sub-region, during COVID, okay, countries like Burkina Faso, okay, had fiscal deficit of 5.7%. Ivory Coast did 5.6%. Nigeria, our big brother here, did 5.8%. Senegal did 6.4%. Government of Ghana did 15.7% on election spending. Please calm down.
No, I just
in the beginning,
to make a
hold on,
around 2018, in their usual rhetoric, they came out with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, you recall, and said they needed to check their own expenses. As we speak today, they have jettisoned the Fiscal Responsibility Act. It was just for the showmanship.
How so? You
was
cannot say that it was
before COVID.
No, that is what I'm saying. But in COVID, what they decided to do is to spend, because they had an election to win. Look, IMF gave us $2 billion. The World Bank gave us $430 million. This government went into the stabilization fund, took $200 million, did the exchange and got 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. Use it for the free water, free everything. Aside this, do you know, please,
we're paying for it now, by the way.
Do you know?
But we enjoyed it.
Do you
But
know
we're
that
still
for the
getting back.
first time,
Carry on.
for the
Now
first
we're talking
time,
of how we're
Hold
going.
on.
for the first time, this government borrowed from the Bank of Ghana 20 billion Ghana cedis. So COVID alone gave this administration close to 40 billion Ghana cedis. That's the amount of liquidity that came in. They wanted to win an election. So they were doing election spending. It has nothing to do with COVID.
How so?
Look.
They gave out food, dry food,
Listen
and
to
cooked
me.
meat.
Listen to me. What was the value of the dry food?
That's
The
about 54 million.
Exactly.
cedis.
Out of 40 billion. Bella, out of 40 billion, how much did they cost for the free water? Even today, they are telling us that we are going to pay for the free water and free electricity. Correct. So it is robbing Peter to pay Paul. We are back to square one. 20 billion from the Bank of Ghana alone. I am saying that you, through your recklessness, you have run this economy aground. And you know what? These rating agencies, you cannot deceive them. They are looking at the data. What is the nature of the data today? As we speak, Government of Ghana projects that interest payment and amortization alone this year will cost us a little over 47 billion Ghana cedis. Emolument and salaries, 38 billion. Statutory payment, 26 billion. If you put it all together, the amount of money we envisage that we will get by way of tax revenue, it cannot pay. Two, do you know that per the 2020 budget, government has already projected that they are going to borrow from the international and domestic market 37 billion. That is what this rating agency, they are looking at the numbers. And the numbers don't lie. You see, the thing that mathematicians do is that 1 + 1 does not call for debate. Because 1 + 1 will give you an outcome. And that is why the rating agencies, with the rating agency, you cannot bandy propaganda. Do you know that as we speak, Government of Ghana is already paying penalties on debt, default?
Please.
Last year they paid 10 million Ghana cedis. You don't know. You used to be a member of the Finance Committee of Parliament.
Don't go there.
We have already started defaulting.
Don't go there.
Look,
We have not started defaulting.
please, if you don't know, say you don't know.
We are not
I am saying that we have paid already.
We are not defaulting.
10 million
Okay,
Ghana.
let him land, please. Let him land.
We have already paid 10 million Ghana cedis as penalty on debt default. You don't know. So the situation is very precarious. And instead of you admitting, demonstrating humility, going back to the IMF for control measures, you do not want to do it.
They say we cannot go back to IMF.
Why?
To control how we run our economy.
Exactly.
And
But you
ready
see,
for that.
if you are with an IMF...
That's what happened when you went to IMF.
Yes, but you see, if you are with an IMF program, you cannot, in a very reckless manner, be doing $14,000, per hour flights from here to America. You can't do it with an IMF program. And that is what the president is not comfortable with, because he knows that the IMF, they are going to control his expenses. Look, Bella, if this government is telling us through Parliament, that they expended 148 million Ghana cedis on presidential, enhancement costs, what does that mean? This government, they do not even have the temerity to even account to the people of this country.
Well, they're saying that we need to relook at the reforms of these rating agencies in terms of ownership and all that, because even the lead analyst on Ghana's Moody's, she is Lucy Villa. She only joined the team on January 1. And so if she took over as the primary analyst covering Ghana, really, she may have gotten it wrong.
No, you see, the issue with this government is
hold on.
They approbate and reprobate. The same government is relying on the same Moody's partly to say that, you contradict yourself. So the same lady you claim came recently,
she doesn't understand.
Can you imagine this? But what government is not admitting is their own incompetence.
Okay.
To the extent that the economy had collapsed on their head.
I did make a point.
At this point, you need humility. What other response?
I did make a point.
You need humility, do you?
Humility. We are very as humble
No,
as anything.
no.
But we are explaining the situation, and we have to explain it for people to understand. I am saying that in 2020 alone, move in revenue, whilst our revenue inflows fell short by 13 billion. We had to increase expenditure by 12 billion. That alone gave you 25 billion.
2 days.
We have spent 21 billion on the financial sector.
2 weeks ago, you heard
on the financial sector.
Hold on, let him.
What did GRA
let
say?
him make his statement.
No. But what GRA is saying that they have a secret.
We spent 21 billion alone.
Okay.
Covered and its expenses. I mean, this is a situation we faced in 2020. Where
simply incompetent.
We have to go.
If this pandemic had happened under you, I'm sure Ghana would have closed up by now.
We'll hopefully continue the issue on Moody's and their ratings tomorrow. But joining me this morning in the studio, Issa Hussaini is a former member of Parliament for Kankwe North, and lawyer Edudi Tamaklo is a member of the legal team of the NDC. Joining us this morning is the General Secretary of the NDC, General Asiedu Nketia. He will be having an exclusive with Johnny Hughes. Look forward to that. Some sports, and we'll talk about AFCON and Senegal emerging winners of the AFCON 2022. And later, Kwabna will also join us. This is TV3 New Day. Keep your comments coming in. We'll read them when we get back. Thank you, gentlemen.
Absolutely.